be, since it's gambling on God, even though it said you don't have to bring any bingo cards or tokens. Although Sister Kay over the weekend said, "Did you get the raffle tickets from the festival people?" I said, "The raffle ticket?" She said, "You know, for the presentation, gambling on God." And I thought she was serious, but I should know better. As Father Fred said, it's just a privilege really to be able to welcome our sisters here with us this evening. A couple of them have talked here individually at Women's Nights Out, so if you've been here in the past, I know Sister Sally has talked, Sister Kay has talked, but it's really a huge blessing that they have combined 225 years of religious life. That is just amazing. All of them have done ministry in high school, either as teachers and as administrators, and whether they want me to say this or not, I did have one of them in high school as my gym teacher. Before she was Sister Kay, she was Miss O'Malley, and I think after our class she decided she had to join the nunnery. But I always tease her to this day, as she knows she's a very dear friend. You know how you are in high school, girls. And you say, "Miss O'Malley, we can't do the bars today. No, it's that time of the month. And, I have cramps." And she would say, "It'll make you feel better. You get up there and you do it. Now go around the gym. Keep going, keep going." Isn't that the truth? Yes, it's the truth. No. No, I did not. But seriously, I personally have come to know, I've known Sister Maureen, Sister Seaton I worked with even before I was here at St. Gabriel, because she was at Regina at the time, and when I was at St. Francis of Assisi, I worked with our senior group, and she would always bring the girls out from Regina to sing with our seniors, and so we got to know each other long before I knew she was going to be here. Sister Sally was a blessing when I met her here, so I've known all four of them, and as I said, they each have their unique charisms and gifts and spirituality, and when I first asked them to come, all four of them immediately said that they would be here. And so currently, they've served everywhere. In Ohio, as you saw the flyer, Ohio, Virginia, Florida, North Canton. Sister Maureen is currently the president at St. John's School in Ashtabula and a former student before. She's here somewhere. It said the school closed, and Sister Maureen reopened it, and it is amazingly thriving. So she has done an amazing job with that school. Sister Sally is currently a math and science teacher at St. John's in Ashtabula. Sister Seaton is a tutor and music teacher at Cleveland Central Catholic. I can't believe you go down there all the time, especially downtown and in this weather. And Sister Kay runs the Regina High School Alumni Association, and her claim to fame with them is that she cooks for them every night. So it is truly with a great deal of respect and admiration that I present them to you tonight, because, as I said, they really are not just dear friends, but they are great examples of what it means to be a woman of faith, a sister, and someone who gives us great examples. So if you'll all welcome the four of them again. I think, Sister Maureen, you get the privilege of being the first one. Okay.
Thank you, Maureen. It's our privilege to be here as well. We certainly feel very much a part of this parish. I'm probably the one you see the least since I minister out in Ashtabula, but certainly feel very grateful to be a part of this. If you don't know, I'm of Irish background. And it's very fitting that we have this gathering tonight. In ancient Irish tradition, Little Christmas was called Women's Christmas, because it's women who put the magic in Christmas. You know, maybe your husbands or significant others put up the Christmas tree, but all the magic of Christmas comes from the women. And so on Little Christmas, the idea was that the men could stay home and do the cooking for the children and do all the chores around the house. The women got to go out to the pubs to enjoy themselves. So I forgot to tell Maureen and Father that they needed to provide the libations for tonight, but maybe you can find a place to stop on the way home. When Maureen asked us to do this presentation, came right to mind to talk about gambling on God. This is the season of football bowl games and all those kinds of things, and we'll try to get you home tonight for the Michigan-Washington game. And the Browns point spread, if you're interested, is they're 2.5-point favorites, and we'll take the bets on that at the end. But I think it's very appropriate that we talk as we enter into the ordinary part of the church here, that we talk about our faith and how faith is really putting our trust in a good and loving God. And that is not always easy. And sometimes we feel like, what are we doing in this? And I'm not a Spider-Man fan. I don't think I've ever seen the whole Spider-Man movie. But I think there's a clip from the Spider-Man movie that can help describe what we're talking about tonight. And as you watch this little video, you might think about, have we ever felt like this?
Ready to be an e-commerce pioneer? Our baked-in premium plugins give you the best ingredients.
What's wrong? You've reached the southwest window. Why are you hesitating?
It's fine, just never been this high before.
You have also not reinstalled your parachute, so a fall from this height will most likely be lethal.
Perfect.
Why is it not breaking?
It's 4-inch ballistic glass. You'll have to create more momentum.
It's my turn! Seriously, what are you doing? Don't worry about the
Stand down! Return to the ground immediately! Return to the ground or we will open fire!
Go on!
I got this.
Take my trophy!
This is your last chance!
I'm gonna die. I did it!
Hey, how you doing? Don't worry about it, I got you.
Yes! Yay! Big guy, quit moving around! Sorry, sir, I'm so sorry. Alright, this is your stop. Go, go, go! Everybody out! Move it, people, move it! Move it! Yes!
You're okay. You're okay.
So, is everyone okay?
This is your chance, Peter. Kiss her.
Thank you. Are you really friends with Peter Parker?
So I think all of us have faced times when we feel like we're at the end of our rope. It might be an illness, it might be unemployment, it might be the end of relationships, but I think all of us feel like Peter Parker at some point. And at some points we're like, okay, we've made it, and then something else comes into our lives that make us realize that no matter how thin the rope might be, that if we trust in God, that there is a way out of the situation. And this whole idea of gambling on God goes way back. The patron saint of gamblers is a person by the name of Saint Catan. He was from Italy, and he was from a wealthy family, and he was abhorred by the money loan industry that was in existence at the time, and he wanted a way to find out of that for people. And so he started the first credit unions that were known to churches and things at the time in order to help loan people money so they could get out of their bad loans. So I think, certainly in economic times like we're in now, the whole idea of being a force for good and taking our own gifts and talents to be able to use those is one way to gamble on God. The whole theology behind gambling on God goes back again a long time. There was a theologian by the name of Pascal. He was a French philosopher, a scientist, and most especially a mathematician. And he came up with the idea that, you might have heard the phrase, it's better to have loved and lost, never than to have loved before. Well, he took that same concept and turned it into his reason for believing in God. And the whole idea was that it was better to believe in God and find out there wasn't a God than to not believe in God and to find out there was. So he came about it not so much from faith as a gift, but faith as a very practical explanation of why we should trust in God. And it fit for his time, because at that time and when he lived, there was a lot of theories about scientificism and the whole idea of reason, which again comes back to our time. That very often people ask, why do you still go to church? Why do you believe? Why do you trust? And I think we can come at it from a number of different ways. And part of our presentation tonight will be to share with you some people who have very different ways of why they believe and what they've done with that belief. Certainly all our belief in God comes to us through Scripture, or a lot of it. And in Scripture, there are over 500 references to fear. Over 500. And God tries to reassure us in many of these, and there's a couple examples up here of Scripture passages. If we had all night, we probably could go around from table to table and ask you to share a Scripture reference that speaks to your heart about casting out in the waters. Certainly many of us think about St. Peter when he was invited to walk out on the water and to show his faith. Or we think about maybe even Judas and Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane. There are many references from the Old Testament and the New Testament that show us that. So one possible outcome of tonight might be to take some time in the next few days, the next few weeks, to look at Scripture and to see passages where someone is afraid, someone is frightened, and how God responds to that. How can we turn to Scripture when we have fear in our own lives, or fear in the lives of those we love? To be able to use Scripture to calm our fears, to make us allow ourselves to hold on to that thin rope so that we can bounce back. Most of our presentation tonight is going to be about showing people from history, women especially, who have dared their lives to risk on God. And then we're going to show some modern examples of that, and then end with talking a little bit about the Sisters of Notre Dame and the risks that have been involved in our congregation as part of our history and our story. So Sister Seaton will talk about some women religious, women saints, holy men and women who have risked all for God.
So there are 4 saints listed up there now. Elizabeth Ann Seton, Edith Stein, Sister Blandina Sagali, and Frances Cabrini. Sister Blandina is not a saint, but her cause is up for canonization. She's called now, I believe, a servant of God. So Edith Stein and Frances Cabrini both risked God. Edith Stein ended up being a martyr. Frances, of course, came to the United States to be to help the Italian immigrants in the States and did marvelous things. But I'm going to focus tonight on Elizabeth Seton and Sister Blandina. So the two of them I find very interesting because they have similarities and differences. So Elizabeth, she was a convert. Sister Blandina, a cradle Catholic. Elizabeth was born in New York. Sister Blandina was immigrated to the United States from Italy with her family when she was 4 years old. Excuse me. Saint Elizabeth at the time in the early 1700s, or late 1700s, early 1800s was in what they called civilized, the eastern part of the United States. Blandina went to the Wild West. Elizabeth was married, the mother of 5. She was widowed at age 29 with 5 children, plus 6 more that she was taking care of. Sister Blandina never married. She entered the convent when she was 16. Interestingly, Sister Blandina was a sister of charity that Mother Seton founded about 50 years later. And then St. Elizabeth died at the age of 47, Sister Blandina at the age of 91. Both of them had a gambling problem, I would say, and that problem was that they trusted God and that was the be-all and end-all of their lives, really. And like gamblers, there are hotlines for gamblers, so I would say the hotline for these two and every other person who gambles on God is that they kept their eyes on Jesus, they trusted that God would provide, and at the same time, they used their God-given talents and their strength of character to go ahead with their lives. They didn't just wish and hope, they acted. So, St. Elizabeth, excuse me, let's go back. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, her life was full of inner struggles as well as many outside circumstances that she was not able to control. Some of those were that her mother died when she was 5. Her father, who was a doctor and often out of the home, was remarried 2 years later, and the stepmother was not happy to have the 2 girls, his own 2 children. So they had a very hard life living with the stepmother, who eventually had about 6 children herself with Dr. Bailey. Let's see. She married William Seton when she was 20 years old. She loved him, but she herself said she wanted to get out of her stepmother's house and she wanted peace and quiet. And for a few years, she had that in her own home. She was very happy with her husband, William Seton, until the time when they had 3 children. Then her father-in-law died, and there was nobody to take care of her husband's 6 younger siblings, so they lived with them. So at about the age of 24, 25, she had 9 kids to take care of. Then her husband had financial troubles. He went bankrupt around almost 2 years before he died. He died when Elizabeth was 29 years old. So she was left with these 9 children to deal with very few financial resources. When her husband got sick, well, he was sick even before they married. He had what they had in those days, they called the complaint, which was consumption TB. And they went to Italy, hopefully for his health. While he was in Italy, he died. And she stayed for 3 months afterwards with her eldest daughter there, with a family called the Felicis. And the Felicis were Catholic, and Elizabeth was not. The Felicis talked to her. They had long conversations about religion. She went to Mass with them, and as she did so, she became aware of her desire for communion. She wanted to receive Jesus in the Eucharist very badly, but she couldn't. When she came back to New York, she was thinking about being Catholic, but she belonged to the Episcopalian Church, had not been really religious, except she had a very deep relationship with God, but she did not have a relationship with organized religion, shall we say, until Henry Hobart, who was a minister, came to Trinity Church. He was a phenomenal preacher and a very holy man, and he inspired her very much. He became aware that she wanted to be Catholic and tried his best to dissuade her. She, on the other hand, was being pulled by the Felicis, who were in constant contact with her, and so she was pulled 2 different ways, and she was trying to figure out, what shall I do? What shall I do? And there are 2 quotes that I'd like to give you that kind of pulled her in the direction of Catholicism. One was her friend Filippo Felici, and he actually used Pascal's wager when he said to Elizabeth, "All your divines admit that the Roman Catholic may be saved. What risk do you run, therefore, in the change? To put oneself on the safer side is certainly prudence." And Elizabeth herself argued to Henry Hobart, "Episcopalians are fine with all Jesus' miracles except the Eucharist. Why accept all and leave out one?" So she came to the conclusion that reasoning reveals the limits of reason, and all the rest is faith. And she decided to become Catholic. That was a humongous risk for her with all the children that she had, because she moved in the upper circles in New York, and Catholics were in the lower circles at that time. She risked the possibility that she would be shunned, that even the resources she had, she would no longer have because her friends and family were helping her out. Excuse me. So she thought about it for a long time, but she finally decided to become Catholic. And she went to St. Peter's Catholic Church, and she said, was so different from her other church. And it was different from Italy, too. It was much less decoration in the church, because the churches in Italy, of course, had been established for a long time. But anyway, she became Catholic. Her children became Catholic. Many of her family did not want her to be Catholic. Many did cut her off for a while. They came back to her. Her friends took care of her. The Felicis and other friends that she had took care of her. She began to be a teacher to help make money. Eventually, she was invited to Baltimore by Archbishop John Carroll, who became aware of her through the Felicis. And then she was invited to Emmitsburg in Maryland, where she ended up founding a religious order at the behest of the priests around her. And Archbishop Carroll wanted her to do that too, although he was skeptical. He didn't know how could she take care of her family and be a mother to the religious, but she managed. In Maryland, her 2 boys were able to live with the priests across the street, basically, up the mountain and across the street. Her girls lived with her. She died at the age of 47. By that time, there were over 100 Sisters of Charity. So 1809 was when the first sisters took their vows. 1821 she died, that's 12 years. So in 12 years, there were more than 100 Sisters of Charity that entered her community. Sister Blandina's path was different. She went out west. She entered the convent at 16. At the age of 22, her superiors said, "We want you to go to Trinidad." She didn't know where Trinidad was. The only Trinidad she knew was in Cuba. And she had wanted to go out west. Well, they told her, you're going to take a train and some stagecoaches to get out there. So she knew she wasn't going to Cuba. She found Trinidad in Colorado. It was a very tiny little place. When she got there, people lived in adobe huts. She said they looked like dugouts for dogs. She had quite a bit of things to do. Her path of total trust in God involved obedience to her religious superiors and her extraordinary creativity and imagination and practicality in solving problems. In fact, she said one time she loved meeting emergencies, and she had plenty of them to meet. Her motto during her 21 years in Colorado and New Mexico, she eventually went to Santa Fe, was what the bishop said to her when she left Ohio, which was, "May the angels guard your every step." Her battle cry was, "The charity of God urges us," and she chose as her role model Francis Xavier. She spent 21 years in the West. Her plan was, do whatever presents itself and never omit anything because of hardship or repugnance. For example, they needed to build a new schoolhouse, which is made of adobe bricks. She had no money, so she got up on the roof and started taking the bricks apart, throwing them down, and one of the wealthy women in the area was walking by and said, "What are you doing?" She told her. Well, this woman got people to get together and build her a schoolhouse. Another time when she was in Santa Fe, her superior said to her, we need a trade school for the Indian girls so they can learn a trade and become independent. And we have no money. And Blandina said, okay. And her superior said, well, do what you did at that other place. So she was talking to the priest of their parish, and the priest said, how are you going to do this? And she said, well, I'll tell you. On Sunday, please give this in the sermon. Tell everyone there that they should send their workmen to me tomorrow with pickaxes and shovels. And she said she didn't know how many would show up. 12 men showed up, and they started digging the foundation. And it was like that for the whole building. The next Sunday, she asked for drivers of mules and wagons so they could get more bricks, etc. So it went like that for the whole thing. So they built it without any money. She was good at that. She was good at solving problems. There was a man who, a little boy in her school was really down one day. She asked what happened, and he said, my dad just shot so-and-so, and he's dying. And my dad's in jail, and there's a mob outside, and they're gonna lynch him. So Blandina went to this jail, talked to the man who had shot him, said, are you willing to go to the man you shot and ask for forgiveness? And he said, I can't leave this place, they're going to kill me. So she went to the sheriff and said, can you protect him when he goes to see the man he shot? The sheriff said, no, I can't. They'll just overwhelm us, this mob out here. Blandina said, well, give me a few hours. So she went to the man who was shot and said, are you willing to forgive the one who shot you if the full extent of the law will be applied? The guy said yes. So she went back to the jail. By escorting the prisoner out, the mob did not do anything to him. She walked him to the house. The other man forgave him, but said the full extent of the law must be applied. Blandina had opened all the windows so everybody outside could hear what was going on. And she said very loudly, the full extent of the law will be applied, but not the mob law. And that's what happened. So the prisoner was forgiven. The other man did die, and the prisoner was given the full extent. He was sent to prison, but she saved his life. The other story I want to tell about Blandina, and then I will pass on the microphone, is that she had an interesting relationship with Billy the Kid, who at the time was terrifying everybody around there. There was one of his gang was shot and was in bad condition. None of the doctors in town would touch him, would help him. So Blandina went, and she and the other sister she lived with nursed the man back to health. For 4 months, they were going to see him, taking him food, changing his bandages, etc. After 4 months, she went there one day, and there were a bunch of women there who were Methodists, and said, "This man is a Methodist, he's one of ours, we'll take care of him." This is after 4 months. So she said, "Okay, fine, good, wonderful, we're happy that you will do this." She went back a week later, and he said he was in dire circumstances. He said they never came back. So she and her sisters took care of him some more. They got in touch with his mother, so his mother came out, and then she helped him. And then they got word that Billy the Kid was coming with the rest of his gang, and they were going to kill the 4 doctors who did not take care of this man. So Blandina went there. When she got there, Billy the Kid and his men were there, and Billy the Kid said to her, "I owe you a favor." And Blandina says, "Yes, I would love a favor from you, and here's my favor. Please do not kill those 4 doctors." And Billy the Kid looked at her and he said, "I told you I'd give you a favor. I stand by it. And from now on, neither my men nor I will bother you." So what happened was, a few months, maybe even a year later, she was on her way on a stagecoach with somebody else. They saw this horseman galloping towards them. The guys all pulled out their revolvers. She said, "Put them away." This guy came up. He saw who it was. He wheeled away. It was Billy the Kid. She said he showed off his Bronco, how he used to do it, and he galloped away. None of the Billy the Kid gang ever bothered her or any of her sisters. She was in the territory for 21 years, then went back to Cincinnati. She and her sister, Justina, were asked to take care of the Italian immigrants in Cincinnati, and they did that for over 30 years. And as I said, she died when she was 91. And if anybody's ever interested, maybe you've read it, this book has lots of stories in it. It's wonderful. It's told in her own words. She wrote everything down for her sister. And so this is her words. Now I'd like Sister Kay.
I'll try this. We would just like to say that Sister Blandina's book will be in the church library soon, because Sister Sally and I have been working on the library for a while, and we still haven't finished it. So, please. Why don't you just chit-chat amongst yourselves till I get to the podium? Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about Mother Teresa. I don't know why, I really like her. There's just something about her, I don't know. But when she was very young, she decided that, I think when she was about, she was very interested in missionaries. And so at the age of 12, she was certain she was going to be a nun. So how many of you people at the age of 10, 11, and 12 and had nuns in school thought you were going to be a nun too? Come on, raise your hand. Yeah. So she left her home at the age of 18 and she went to Ireland and she joined the Sisters of Loretta there because they were missionaries in India. She could learn English in Ireland. The brogue was probably great. And then she could go to India because that's where the sisters were missioned. They had missions in India. About a year later, after she arrived there, she must have learned English really fast because she was teaching at St. Teresa's School in India. And then she made her solemn vows, or her final vows, in 1937, and she became a teacher in India, in another school in India, and she did that for probably about the last 20 years of her teaching. She liked teaching, but unfortunately, she really loved the poor because I get the idea that she wasn't teaching in a poor school. Not every school in India is poor. You know, they have like middle class schools and richer schools and stuff like that. And so she was looking around though, and she said, all the people that are really poor. And not that the sisters didn't want to do things for them, but her right then and there, her role was to be a teacher. So finally, she decided one time, because she said that there was the call within the call she was having. And as she was traveling on to go to a retreat, she said, I was to leave the convent and to help the poor while living among them. It was then that she decided that she really had to start working with the poor. And she lived with them. She didn't live in a convent, she lived with the people. And we have sisters that are Indian sisters that live in India, and they have done the same thing. They have gone to live with the people, not insofar as, not in the convents. Okay, and then finally, she didn't say bye to the Sisters Loretta, I'm out of here. She went through the right channels and everything, and she got permission to do this. And finally, the Holy See gave her permission to start a new order. And this is the thing that really got me. In her words, it would be to take care of the hungry, the naked, the homeless, the crippled, the blind, the lepers, all those who feel unwanted, unloved, uncared for throughout society, and people that have become a burden to the society and are shunned by everyone. That's a lot. That's a lot, really. And in the end, she talked about that she was going to help, they were going to help the poorest of the poor. She opened a hospice, and at the hospice, they took in anyone. She didn't want to see anybody die in the street or die without somebody being with them. That was the other thing. And so they opened, in a Hindu temple, they opened a hospice for the dying. And they got the medical attention that they needed and so forth. But it wasn't just Catholic. It was whatever denomination they were, they made sure that they had that. So, let's see, but the Hindus had the water from the Ganges, and then the Catholics had the last rites and so forth. And one of the things that she said was, a beautiful death is for people who lived like animals to die, is for people who lived like animals to die like angels and loved and wanted, which was such a beautiful thing. And on to my next page. Sister Teresa said that by blood I'm an Albanian, by citizenship I'm an Indian, by faith I'm a Catholic nun. As to my calling, I belong to the world, and as to my heart, I belong entirely to the heart of Jesus. So, and there's so many missions that she's opened throughout the world. It's just unbelievable. And I'm putting you on the spot, Mary. I thought of you today, and I didn't know you were going to be here. Mary Hurley. Mary, didn't you work with some of her sisters in Haiti? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going, see, look at that. I gambled on God with that one, and look what I got. I got Mary Hurley here today. But I really and truly thought of you today. And so Mary spends some of her time and talents and money, and she goes to Haiti. And are you still working with them?
Yeah, and I have a friend from Haiti with me tonight.
Oh. Welcome.
But she's not a missionary or charity.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's so good to see you again, Mayor.
Good to see you too, sister. I had her for visit too.
And by the way, they do have places in New York and places in the United States too, where they really take in, really hospice, take in the poor. But there's just something about her, I don't know. The next I'd like to talk about are the 4 women martyrs, okay? But I'm gonna talk about one, and I'm probably gonna cry. Because I have a good friend, Dorothy Kazel. We went to high school together. Okay. We met at Notre Dame Academy in Cleveland. Not going to tell the year. And during our 4 years together, we became friends with about 12 other close friends. Yeah, you had your close friends, like millions of them. Okay. And we did all kinds of things together. Dorothy was a very pretty, blue-eyed, blonde girl. In fact, she and Jean Donovan would kid every once in a while and say, oh, they'll never kill us because we're the blue-eyed blonde girls and we're from America and they won't do that. Okay. Dorothy was on student council for 4 years at Notre Dame Academy, so therefore she was, you voted her on. She was our class president junior and senior year. She was really good at throwing parties and organizing things at school. But of course, she had a way of telling her 12 close friends that how nice it would be when they set it up this way and worked on it this way and then cleaned up this way. But we loved doing it. It wasn't. Okay, then the other thing was, I remember we were waiting for her, but she was away. She was a roller skater. So she comes in with a trophy because she had won some kind of roller skating thing. I mean, she was like, doing the fancy stuff and everything. So from then on, she was Queenie Kazel. So as time went on, after high school, we both went to college. She went to St. John's, I went to Notre Dame College. And our families had moved from our old neighborhoods in Cleveland. She was from St. George's, and we were from St. Aloysius. We got a couple of people here from St. Okay? And as it happened, we both ended up on the same street in Euclid. So they were down, she was down a little bit down farther on the street. So we'd see each other occasionally. And Dorothy actually taught at St. Robert's School when she first started teaching, and that's how she got in touch with the Ursulines, because the Ursulines were teaching there. When she did go to the Ursulines, she first taught at Sacred Heart Academy in East Cleveland. Did anybody here go to Sacred Heart Academy? Look at that. Okay. And then after the school closed, she was transferred to Beaumont, and I think she taught business, and then the other thing she taught was, and then she was a guidance counselor there. And according to what the kids would say about her, she always had time for them and listened to them and tried to help them in any way that she could. They loved her sense of humor, which she really had. She had a good one. And how she made everything fun. So, a good description of Dorothy. Okay, when the Diocese of Cleveland opened their mission in El Salvador in '67, she volunteered to go right away. But she didn't go until '74 and was finally given permission to become a missionary. And she always wanted to do that, actually. She always wanted to help people, anybody that needed help. She was there for them. In El Salvador, her work was mostly working with people in parishes, planning masses, prayer services, training people for the reception of the sacraments, which a lot of people in here I know do also, by the way. I can see some of you people that do so much work here at church. The main goal of the Cleveland team was to develop lay leadership so that the work of the church would continue after the missionaries were gone. And besides all of this, though, she continued having the parties for the people in El Salvador and in that village. In 76, civil war was taking place in the country, and then corrupt government leaders and military started to take over. The rich didn't want the poor to be educated because they were afraid they'd eventually take their land and their money and so forth. And so the death squad started coming into the villages. And then they would take away men and boys, sometimes the women, but mostly the men and the boys, and they were never seen again. They would just pick them up, take them off, kill them. The missionaries continued to do their original work, but started setting up refugee shelters for people. And then Jean and Dorothy, though, they would go out at night, find the bodies of those that were taken, and return them to their families so that they could have closure and they could bury their. And if they didn't, if they would find people that they didn't know where they belonged, then they would make sure that they had a good burial. Yeah. So the missionaries had a 5-year term. And when Dorothy left, she was supposed to return in 79. But they needed a volunteer to stay an extra year, so she stayed an extra year. And she really loved it there. She hated the fact that she might have to come back. So anyway, one day I was at St. Robert's going to church, and guess who I met? Met Dorothy. So we talked, and she said, well, I'm going to be back in March 1981. We'll get together for your birthday and, start catching up. Well, before she left, and I kind of got a few hints from her too, I learned that she knew that the government had her on the hit list. They knew it. They really did. But of course, they would kid again about the blonde hair and blue eyes. So Dorothy didn't make it to my birthday, but she was partying up in heaven then, okay? And as well as the other 3 women. And the only thing I can say is, thank God for putting Dorothy in my life. It was good to be a friend of hers. It was good to see her as a good example, and it was good to see the wonderful works that she had done for the people. So that's another lady. And if you notice, they did gamble on God. It wasn't like one of these, I had a vision and God told me to do this. It was this inner feeling that we know God gave them, but they acted on it then. But they saw the need, both women, and they took care of it. Okay, so here's one more. And this one is present day. And this is our own Sister Mary Berrigan. She's a sister of Notre Dame, and she's actually in Sister Maureen's group, so in her vow group. I'll tell you a little bit about her and what has happened, but she and another woman started what is called Blessing House. Sister was a principal at an elementary school, and a woman called Donna Humphrey was a certified public accountant, and both volunteered as court-appointed special advocates in the courts of Lorain County. All right, the judge names court-appointed special advocates in cases involving children, such as domestic violence, abuse, neglect cases, to argue for the best interest of the children, while attorneys sometimes are pushing for the legal rights. They're looking at the bigger picture of what's going on with the family and education. So in 2005, after 25 years of teaching, Mary opened with Donna the Blessing House. It's a temporary care for children and help for their families. It's a non-denominational, faith-based. It started off actually as a small home, and there were little babies all over the place. It's for children. That's it. Little babies in cribs, and they had volunteers working there. They had professional people working there, and then what happened was there were more kids than there is room, because it was a small house. Has anybody been to Blessing House? Any chance? 2 people? Okay, yeah. Come Blessing, you can visit Blessing House. So Mary and Donna saw there was a need. And it was a great need because they were in Lorain County and they said one out of every 4 families in Lorain County are at the federal, the federal poverty line. Then this was written like 2 years ago, and at that point it was they get $26,000 for 4 people a year. Okay. And so, knowing that they needed a bigger place, because they were getting more kids, the 2 of them decided that they would try to build a new place. And a couple of years later, and in fact, 2 years ago in April, the new place has been was finished and made, and I'm going to show you a picture of what it looks like now. I hope. Yeah.
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta make sure you're covered. I'm talking about enterprise-grade security built into your site and fully managed for you. Check this out. First up,
Oh, technology.
Exactly.
There it is.
Hello, I'm Sister Mary. I'm the Executive Director of Blessing House and one of the founders of the house. I'm sitting here in front of our memory wall. Each of the handprints and footprints that you see here represents a child who found safety during their stay at Blessing House. The Blessing House mission statement talks about us as a safety net for the children that we serve, for the families that we serve. That safety net that has grown over the years also helps us to connect with other partners in the community to make sure that our children are safe here and safe at home. When we first founded Blessing House, we talked about the safety of the children, and our safety idea was pretty small. We knew that they needed food, they needed clothing, they needed a bed to sleep in, they needed to be able to get to school, and they needed loving adults around them to provide care for them. Over the past 17 years, we have grown in our concept of what safety involves. When they're here, certainly they have the care given by many of our staff. We work with them on school issues. We look at developmental needs of our youngest children, and we look to make sure that whatever their needs are being met. Perhaps they need a doctor visit, they need to see a counselor, whatever it might be, we want that to be part of their safety plan while they are here. We bring in the parents to meet with us to make sure that they are also looking at safety for the children. We help them plan for the future or when the children return home. Safety over the years has taken on many different perspectives, but for each of our children, it's that opportunity for us to make sure that their needs are known, addressed, and planned for.
Thank you.
So that's Blessing House, and again, did Mary say anything about God coming down and say, go
Ready to
Blessing
hatch
House?
some cool pets. Click
But-
here to make your very own monster unadapted mind. They're monsters,
And she's our guru. just one last thing about Maria. She talked about a boy that came back after he graduated from high school, and in his essay to get into college, he wrote about Blessing House, and he said, "I know if it had not been for Blessing House, we would not still be a family." You're doing great work. Thank you.
I'm the last one. So far, we've been talking about individuals, especially women, that have taken risks and made a difference in the world. I'd like to talk a little bit about groups. And I'd like to talk about the group of the Sisters of Notre Dame. We as women, religious, the four of us here today, gave our lives with great risk, as you have given your life with great risk in choosing your way of life. But we've lived together now many, many years as religious women and as religious community. Many people say the Sisters of Notre Dame are a religious community, and that's really at the heart of who we are, that we're not individuals. We work individually, but we work together. And we've been very blessed. We're on our 13th year here at St. Gabe's, and all four of us were many years at Regina High School together before it closed. So we know each other pretty well. And so I just say that as the beginning, and I want to share a little bit about who are the Sisters of Notre Dame. I don't know whether you know much about the Sisters of Notre Dame, but we are called officially as the Sisters of Notre Dame of Coesfeld, Germany. We are related to the Sisters of Notre Dame de Nemours, who originated in France. And we are somewhat related to the School Sisters of Notre Dame. You might have heard of that out east. That's another Notre Dame congregation different from ours. Our religious congregation was founded, and I'm trying to find a place to set this here, was founded in Germany in a little tiny village. I had the privilege of visiting that village a few years ago. That's good. Oh, good. Thank you. She's the other guru. And we were founded by two women, Aldeganda and Lizette. You can see their pictures there. This is a painting. And they were women who were trained as teachers and became aware of the need of especially girls to receive a correct and a full education. So they began to take in girls to educate them, and also to take in children, girl children, who were actually orphaned. A priest in the parish said to them eventually, why don't you look at the possibility of making this, a bigger project? Take the risk of inquiring about the possibility of being a religious community, a religious congregation. And so the two women thought it through, took the risk, and eventually the Sisters of Notre Dame of Coesfeld, Germany were developed. I also have up there the picture of St. Julie Billiard, because you often hear of her more than you hear of Aldeganda and Lizette. In fact, we hadn't heard about Aldeganda. It was after Vatican II, when congregations were encouraged, they were encouraged to find out more details about their founding, that really the foundresses were the actual women who started these particular ministries, whereas we now say our spiritual mother was the spirituality of St. Julie Billiard. So our sisters, the original sisters in the first groups, were actually trained in the spirituality of St. Julie Billiard. And so we have her spirituality, but we really have the mission of the two women from Coesfeld. From that time, now, this is a quick course. Founding about 175 years ago in the 1800s. In the 1850s, sisters came from Germany to the United States. What happened was, if you know a little bit about history, and I'm not, Sister Maureen knows more, she's the history person. But in Germany, the culture Kampf was happening, which was the persecution of Catholics. Religious women and men were not allowed to wear a religious habit. They weren't allowed to teach in the schools. The only schools they could teach in were the preschools. And I don't know why that, but at the bottom line is that sisters were basically not allowed to witness to their, being religious congregations.
Sister, what years did you say that was?
It was about 1874. And I'm not good at the dates. But anyways, what happened then was two bishops from Germany came to Ohio. Now, again, I don't know what their connection was. They asked the sisters back in Coesfeld, who were underground, basically, if they would be willing to come to the States to educate the German immigrants. And that's exactly what happened. 12 sisters took off on a ship from Europe, traveled across the ocean to the States, not knowing any English, just knowing their German, came into New York Harbor on July 4th. They thought it was for them. Anyway, it was a happy welcome. But these women and these sisters traveled to Cleveland. One bishop was from Cleveland. The other bishop was from Covington, Kentucky. And then eventually sisters went to Toledo, Ohio, and then eventually to California. So we came from Germany and gave a home to those sisters, and then they educated in our schools. If you know, like St. Francis, Cleveland, were German immigrants. They announced that the sisters were there, they were going to start classes the next day, and they said that 50 students came. The next day, an additional 100 came. The schools were filled quickly because they had people that could speak to them and teach them. Today, in addition to the United States, we serve in 13 different countries. We're so used to seeing our sisters here in this country and doing what they're doing and so on. But in Europe, Germany, Holland, Italy, England, USA, you see there. When some sisters went to the United States, some other sisters went to Brazil. So we have lots of sisters in Brazil. And then each of our areas began to develop and save for missions in various parts of the world. So in the Cleveland area, we supported and began our India mission. Now we had 6 sisters that went there, took the risk of going to a country very different from ours. Anyways, they now have about 400 sisters in India. They in turn went to Africa. It's like our granddaughter province there. So we have sisters in East Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. We have missions. The Holland mission sponsored the Indonesian mission. The Toledo mission established a mission in Papua New Guinea. The Indonesians went to the Philippines. And most recently, our Korean sisters are in China and Vietnam. They cannot practice publicly their faith. They're very, very limited. But they're there, and they're kind of working underground with the parishes. So from 2 to now about 2,000 sisters of Notre Dame worldwide. And we're very grateful for the opportunity to really to be a part of the future of the church in Africa, in India, in Indonesia, and so on. I threw one other picture in to show you, in terms of risk-taking. These are the Maasai in Africa. I had the privilege of spending some time in Africa at one of our missions. And it was right at the time that the sisters in Tanzania were looking at the possibility of developing a mission with the Maasai tribes in Africa. And they've been very successful. We now have a school in the Maasai area. We have a convent. They built a convent. And the sisters that went there, they have to learn all the new languages. It's just incredible to me how they can take that personal risk of being able to do that. But anyways, I threw this in because it was one of the pictures I took, and they're very warm and welcoming people, and very colorful, and the children are darling. Okay, we can't end this without taking a look at the woman in our scripture in our lifetime who's made the biggest risk in terms of our faith. The image there of Mary is one that Sister Marisa painted. Some of you might know Sister. She taught art here for a while, and she lived in the convent. And she's a painter, really. That's her gift. She herself spent some time in the Philippines, helping the mission there and training the sisters there. But that's what she sent this as a Christmas card this year, and it was so beautiful. I thought we should use it. But Mary, the ultimate risk taker. Think of some of the things that she said in her life and some of the risks she took. Be it done unto me according to your word, and so on. I have 4 other pictures as examples. The first is the Annunciation. These are rather creative. They're Michael McGrath's artwork. The angel asking, and she didn't say, well, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. No, she didn't say that. In fact, she said, I quote Father Sweeney from his homily a few Sundays ago, just say yes. Remember? He was very firm about that. The message came through. I'm sure in the second picture, Mary had no idea that there would be no room in an inn, that they would look for a stable and a warm place to give birth. I mean, imagine. And then to trust that Joseph actually also was spoken to by an angel, and they left for Egypt to save the life of their son. There she is. The third, I think we missed, okay, the third is one of my favorites, because I know that when Mary discovered that they had no wine, Jesus hadn't done any miracles yet. And so, at least miracles that we know about. But I can just see the twinkle in her eye. She said to Jesus, they have no wine. And he's like, and then she doesn't answer him. She looks at the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. Amazing. The last one, the last picture bridges into the final, and that is the Last Supper. Mary's there, as you can see in this particular rendition. And I wonder, as we hear the words, and as Mary heard the words, this is my body, this is my blood. And she can truly look at her son and say, this is my body, this is my blood. And again, still not knowing what was ahead for the crucifixion. So Mary is one that we can all look to as an example of deep faith, deep love, and deep risk-taking. And finally, the communion of saints. Who are they? Well, actually, they are you. We're all called to be risk takers, but these, I don't know whether you recognize these or not, these are tapestries that hang in the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels in Los Angeles. There's 25 tapestries hung on the sides of the church, everyone like marching toward the altar. The artwork is incredible, and these are just a few of them. But what you find in these is that you find the saints that we sometimes name publicly, St. Joseph, St. Peter, St. Paul, St. Mary Magdalene, and so on. But you also find us. You find some children. You find faces that are not faces that are familiar to us, but they are us. The painter, I don't know whether he's a painter, the artist who created these, says there's 135 people altogether in these tapestries. And there's 25 tapestries around the church. Interestingly, you might remember seeing this before because last year for Christmas the parish gave us, and some of those tapestries are on the front of this and the back of this. So take a look at it because Mother Teresa's there, St. Nicholas is there, St. John the 23rd is there, St. Francis is there. So you can, it's very interesting you can pick some of the actual saints that are named there. But we are called to be part of the communion of saints, and when it's most specific for us and most meaningful is at the Eucharist. Because at the Eucharist, time fades away, and we're united in our presence today with our presence among the many people we've loved and lived with who've gone to heaven already and are waiting for us. And at communion time, when we receive that Eucharist, we're joined with them, with one another, with the church. We're all together risk takers for our faith. Thank you.
Now, we could go home tonight and share stories about Elizabeth Ann Seton, Sister Blandina, Dorothy Kazel, the Sisters of Notre Dame. And if that's all you do, we have failed. Because stories are wonderful and they inspire us and they remind us. But if they're just stories, then faith doesn't live on. And so what we hope that as we leave here tonight is that we ask a couple questions. How can each person in this room gamble on God? Most of us don't have a religious superior telling us to go west or a calling from God to go to India and work among the poor. Most of us live within a daily life within Mentor, Concord, Kirtland, Ashtabula, and places in between. So, how can we express our faith in public? How can we share that we are risk takers? How can we encourage others to develop a faith life? For those of you who are parents in the room, this is obviously a very important part of your lives. Now more than ever, it's grandparents who are answering that question. Each of the women that we talked about tonight were women of prayer. How can we continue to develop that in ourselves? How do we find what God is calling us to? For each of the women that we talked about tonight, they had to discover the way that God was calling them. Not so much for what they could do, but for what they are. I don't know that we have time tonight really to do table discussions, but I think some questions up here, who are the people in our lives that we know that are risk takers? I'm sure there are other people that you know that are part of that. Who are the people in our lives that have helped us take risks of faith? How can we help others to do that? Before we end, we'll have a closing prayer, but I think it might be opportunist if anybody has a question or comment or something that they would like to share, a question you want to ask of any of the four of us. Don't be shy now.
I guess I have a question. What inspired you to be a nun? Was it encouragement from the family? Or was it just a call from God? I don't say just a call from God, but a call from God. I was just curious.
I guess since I have the microphone, Well, I was blessed to grow up in a very strong, supportive family. One of 8 children. My brother entered the Cleveland Seminary and then eventually joined the Maryknoll Priests. My mother was a daily churchgoer. We grew up with a large extended family. We were fortunate to go to Catholic elementary and high schools. Sister Sally was one of the people that inspired me. She was my senior high school teacher. So I think it's the example of others, the culture of that this was something that was acceptable, something, I don't know, necessarily encouraged, but certainly acceptable. A culture where faith was a part of our daily life. I mean, we tease now that, growing up, we knelt down for the rosary, and if a friend came in, they were expected to kneel down and join us. And, that was just the culture of that atmosphere was a large part of it for me.
When you had up there that the Sisters Notre Dame in the U.S., there were just, 4 or 5 cities? Is that it in the United States?
Those are what we used to call provinces. So there's, like in Cleveland, we served in schools here and in Virginia and in North Carolina and Florida and so on. So those aren't all the cities we're in. It's just that where the centers are. We have a center here, a center. Good question. Very observant. Yeah.
I wonder if you might mention something about the availability of becoming an associate. So I think that's a faith enhancing.
Okay, maybe you would like to say something.
Okay,
Marge and I go way back.
Well, there's an opportunity available to all of us, men and women alike. It's mainly women who become involved and you become an associate of Notre Dame. And what you do is you share in the charism. The charism is sharing the good and provident God. And I think that's something we all do here in our parish. And this does not detract from time that's taken away that you to serve your parish. I think it's an additional leap of faith. It helps develop your faith. It helps you come together with people that are like-minded and learn of ways to go out and spread the word. And it's available to you. There's a formation that takes place. You have an opportunity to think if it is something for you. You have someone you journey with for about a year to see if that is something that you would like to take part in. And it's something someone asked me just anecdotally, and I have to watch because I'm a yes person. But it was a real good move to take, and you're invited to attend. You're hopefully encouraged and not just invited to attend a retreat once a year. You have a faith sharing. Pat's in our faith sharing over there, and I'm sorry, I'm having a mental block on your name. Yes, you're a Notre Dame associate. I apologize. It's a senior moment. I know it as well as I know. She's an associate as well. So I just would encourage you to give some thought to that, put it to prayer, and see if it's something that's God putting in your heart. And I just see it as another opportunity to share our faith and be witnesses to other people.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Let's do our closing prayer. There should be copies on your table. I don't know if there's one per person. We also have it up here on a slide.
Yes. We went to the Jesuit retreat house and Dee and I went down to one. Yes, that was
So maybe before we start the litany of faith, we could each think about somebody who has been an example of faith to us, and to pray in thanksgiving for them, and then to pray in supplication that each of us can be a person of faith for other people. And finally, to, in a sense, one writer talks about prayer as being, thanksgiving, supplication, and wow. So to think about those wow people who have made a difference in our lives. So our response to each of our intentions, our litany, will be, deepen our faith, O loving God. By faith, Abraham set out, not knowing where he was going.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, Moses left Egypt and led his people out of slavery.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, Mary responded yes to give birth to God's Son.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, the apostles left their homes to follow Jesus.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, holy men and women risked all to begin religious communities.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, missionaries leave home to bring the gospel to others.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, parents are called to gift their children with the love of God.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, we are called to share the good news of the gospel.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, we are called in moments of darkness to rely on God.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, we are led to trust when trust seems so far away.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
By faith, we follow the one who is the source of all faith.
Deepen our faith, O loving God.
We ask this as we ask all things in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Maureen, Sister Sally, Sister Kay, Sister Seaton. I know I speak for each person here, each woman here, that you have each one in your own unique way have touched our hearts, have challenged us to gamble and take risks for God, and to really use our faith to touch the hearts of others. So thank you for the tremendous witness, not just tonight, but throughout your lives that you have been, and that you did take the risk to answer God's call as religious sisters, and to take the risk to walk out in faith, especially in challenging times. So thank you so much, and I invite you to, again, thank them for their great witness tonight. And I know they'll be here for a little bit. I don't know what time these games or whatever start, but I'm not a football person or a basketball or whatever, baseball, whatever we're playing right now, but I'm sure they will be here for a little bit. We'll see if we can get that tunnel across the street to the convent. So thank you all for being here. Help yourself to take some desserts with you. And again, we're grateful for your presence this evening. Very grateful for the four of you.